All right. Sorry about sending out the wrong password yesterday, the wrong link. Hopefully everybody is back in now. Let's see here. Am I muted? Nope, I should not be muted now. Okay. So what we'll do today, we'll start out with success stories. We'll go to our committee reports, workshop, job fairs, lunch report, pit crew, interview success workshop, career tip of the week. And then we'll have our speaker around 10 o'clock or so. And then at the very end, we'll have everybody put in their information for their 30-second introductions. Just as a reminder, at the very bottom of the screen, for those of you who are on Zoom, there's a participant box. If you'll click on that, it'll look something like this, and you have an option there to hit yes or no if our speaker happens to ask you a question. But more importantly, for those people who, if your name is not fully, if I can't see your full name, like there's somebody currently who's D861591 on Zoom, if you will go hover over the More button and rename yourself and put in your full first and last name, that way I can capture everybody's name who's currently here, and I can make sure that we give you credit. I'll capture all these names, put them on our roster, and I'll get an email out to you this afternoon with the details. For those of you who are on Facebook, we ask that you just be sure to enter your name or just say good morning or something in the comment box. That way we know you're here, and then we'll get you added to the roster also. For those of you who for asking comments, and if you have questions during our meeting, please click on the chat button if you're on Zoom, and you'll be able to enter your information. For those of you who are on Facebook, just enter your question in the comment box. I do monitor that, and I'll be sure to get those questions answered to get them asked during the presentation. And then just make sure that when you're sending your chats out, that you're sending them out to everybody. You just enter the message right there down at the very bottom. For those on Zoom, there's a couple different options. You can view either a speaker view or a gallery view by clicking where that yellow arrow is. It'll flip back and forth between it. Hopefully you're looking at the speaker view, which is on the lower left-hand corner, and where that little red arrow is, you can slide it and you can make the speaker bigger, the slide a little bit smaller, whatever is comfortable, whatever makes it work best for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channels for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and pictures to appear. So we'd like to start the meeting off with good news. We've got 68 people on Zoom, 12 people on Facebook. Do we have any landings? Has anybody landed? Please unmute your mic and tell us your good story, or raise your hand and I'll make sure I unmute your mic for you.
Yes, Jeff.
Yes.
Yes, my job called me back on Monday. Yeah, my job called me back on Monday, and they asked for me to come back. I start back again on June 22nd.
Oh,
I'm still open for I have some jobs calling me lately, and I'm still open. I still keep it open for them, but for now I'm supposed to start on June 22nd.
Well, good. Congratulations. You want to tell us what you're doing?
I was a receptionist at Regis.
Okay. Very good. Well, congratulations. I'm glad you've been called back. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other landings?
Hi, Jeff. This
Yes.
Warner, the friendly CPA. I have not been present at meetings going back into February because I landed a last second bridge job. I'm the controller at Hank Haney Golf in Louisville. So I've been very busy, so I haven't had a chance to stop by and pass out some donut holes, but there's a nice picture of some right there, so help yourselves.
Very good. All right. Well, congratulations. How did you find that job?
So I found that job. I was referred into the job by Maria Smith, who's also an alumni. She was doing this position and needed to make more money. So she landed herself another full-time gig, and she referred me in for the position. So it's been a great experience. It's always great to get out and be productive and make a contribution. Atmosphere is great. Golf business is booming, and wish they made enough money to be able to pay me better. So I'm still in the market for a full-time gig, but I am also interested in additional part-time roles. I've worked out a deal with the owner of the company that he'll allow me tremendous flexibility if I'm able to bring in some more contract roles, because he would love for me to stick around. And the only way that happens is if I get more work and can mesh the two together.
Well, great. All right. Well, thank you very much. Congratulations. Do we have anybody else? Any other landings? Raise your hand if you can't unmute your mic, but I think you should be able to unmute your mic. No? Okay. Well, let's move on. Let's see here. Next up on the thing here, job fairs, career announcements coming up.
All right. Good morning, everybody. The information I'm about to provide to you comes from the careerdfw.org website, the calendar tab, which aggregates all the information related to your job search and career efforts in one handy dandy location. Focus on career and job fairs and special workshops or events. I go through these fairly quickly. I urge you, if something catches your ear, to go to the calendar. There's usually a link associated with a particular announcement that will give you more information and or allow you to register for that event. Okay, the career and job fairs for this week. The DeSoto Virtual Job Fair will be held on Wednesday, June 17th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and June 18th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there is a link in the calendar to find out more about how to log on to that. And again, that's the DeSoto Virtual Job Fair. This week's special workshops or events. And normally I would be announcing information about the Who You Know workshop, but there was no announcement on that. And Jeff, have they canceled that? Because that was a regular. No,
it's still there, but it's not I moved it to webinars because it's not it's a different kind of thing. So I moved it this week. I'll probably put it back next week. I'm just playing. They're still happening. It's on the webinar calendar.
Right. It's on June 15th, and there's a Zoom link for that. It's from 1 to 3 and hosted by Foster Williams, the job father, as I understand now that he's known by that moniker. And he will definitely make you an offer you can't refuse. The online LinkedIn Tuesdays workshop will be held Tuesday, June 16th from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. There is a Zoom link online for that one. The online Frisco Career Transition Workshop will be held Tuesday, June 16th from 3 to 4:15. This week's session is by Locke Alderson, and it's interviewing. Online interviewing Wednesdays at 1 p.m. with Mark McDonald and Walt Glass. There's a Zoom link on that. It'll be Wednesday, June 17th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Online Resume Thursdays with Carol Brickell, Certified Professional Career Coach, will be held June 18th from 1 to 2 p.m. There's a Zoom link for that. And finally, an online meeting, Who Am I? Define Your Value, June 18th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. That will be taught by Phil Guy, and that's sponsored by, I believe,
Career Care.
Career Care with Bill Brewer, and there's a Zoom link for that one on the calendar. And that's it for this week.
Great, thank you very much. All right, somebody's got their mic open. Let's see here. Let me go mute a couple people here. What I'd like you to do, if you would, open up your participant box for those of you who are on Zoom, and I'd like you to click yes or no. Do you know somebody who lives outside the DFW area who is unemployed? So if you know somebody who lives outside the DFW area, please click on the yes or no button. For those on Facebook, if you'd like to, you can just enter yes or no. Well, it's pretty close right now. It's about 21 to 23, 22 to 23. So it's almost 50%. Well, the reason I ask this question is because, let's see here. I just want you to, if you know people who are outside the DFW area, please let them know about the networking groups and all the meetings that we're having. If they go to Career DFW, they can click on the webinar, teleseminar, radio, TV show link right there. I've added the link to the front page to make it easy for people so that they can find other events. Here's what the calendar looks like. And when you click on it, you can see all the events that somebody can go to, all the webinars and different things that are happening. And you click on one of those things, you can get the link to get in. All that information's right there. I keep it updated every week as long as I find out about things. So if you would, please let people know if they live outside the DFW area that these events are all free, and we welcome anybody to join us for any of these things that are happening. If you happen to know somebody who just lost their job and they're not sure what to do, I've added a link on the Career DFW and Career USA websites. They can click right there where it says, I just lost my job, what do I do now? It'll come up with a page. It's got some really great information on it. It's got some checklists, things that you should do first, second, third, fourth, things to get through and things to do. So check it out. It's all the other information's there to try to help as many people as we can. All right, it's time for the lunch report. Bobby.
Well, places are starting to open back up, and I'm just going out to lunch as much as I can to support our local businesses. Today, we're going to go to lunch, Sue Ellen and I, to Dickey's Barbecue right after the meeting. So, we can't get together as a group. They say family units only, but I'll claim you're my cousin if you come. So we're going to Dickey's after the meeting. Hope you guys have a great lunch wherever it is.
And where's the Dickey's you're going to be going to?
I'm sorry?
Where's the Dickey's that you're going to be going
to? Oh, I'm sorry. The Dickey's on Preston Road between Spring Creek and Parker.
Okay, just right across from Weaver's Furniture, that complex. The Dickey's that we always tend to go to. Bobby, thank you very much.
Lorimar.
Okay, have a great lunch. All right, Mark, the practice interview team.
Hello, good morning, everybody. The practice interview team is alive and well, and things are starting to pick up. I think companies are starting to figure out how to do this virtual interviewing and virtual onboarding, and then virtual employees work from home. So you want to get in on that action, and a good way to get started is to come and practice with the pit crew. We'll give you a video interview with 3 panelists like we had normally done when we were meeting face-to-face. And we'll give you a chance, to practice doing it on video, but also to work on your content. We believe that in the end, the most confident, optimistic, positive candidate is going to get the job. And so there's a lot of stuff you need to do as basics so you can focus on building rapport and demonstrating your confidence and telling great stories. So we do that by you sending in a job description and your resume. So the interview is based on that job description. It's very customized and personalized to your situation. And that job can be something you're engaged in, or just something that looks really good to you, or even a generic job description. If you just search, project manager job description on Google, you'll find some generic job description. So you send that in. It takes us a couple of days to get everybody organized, but we'll do it right away. So we do them every day of the week now. If you were to send it in today, we'd be shooting for Tuesday or Wednesday as a backup. And so that's about how long it takes to set them up. And we do not have observers now, but if you have someone in particular that you'd like to listen in, with your permission, we can add 1 observer. You also get a recording of the entire interview, a video recording and an audio only recording. So that's helpful to refer to in the future. So come and practice with the pit crew. Now, you want me? Yeah. So on Wednesday afternoons, when we used to meet face to face, we'd spend the last 15 or 20 minutes reviewing interviewing. We teach a little bit about interviewing and review what came up during the interviews that day. Now that's been replaced by a webinar on Wednesday afternoons. Walt and I present a topic of the day, and there's 13 topics. We're on topic 10, I think, in the rotation. And so next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about 2 of the most important questions that you need to do well on, which is, what are your salary requirements, and why did you leave your last job, or why are you planning on leaving your current job? So we'll cover those 2 in some detail, which is, nice, because during 15 or 20 minutes, you just can't do it justice. So that's what we'll be talking about, session 10. And then the week after that is a bit on networking and informational interviewing. All of the previous sessions, 1 through 9, are available on Jeff's YouTube channel. So he'll announce that a little bit later. And yeah. Come and you can to find how to get into the Wednesday meeting. You just go to careerdfw.org and go to the calendar, Wednesday afternoons at 1 o'clock. Thanks.
Mark, thank you very much. Walt.
Yes, and that's Central Time for those of you that are not in Central Time today. So welcome everyone. Walt Glass here. I would love to help you figure out what to do to prepare for an interview. So I do a workshop. And so you get coaching and feedback, you get a video as well. But it's the basics of interviewing, and really focused on differentiation and how you can stand out from those other candidates. You have to be registered to attend. I only do 2 people at a time. It's usually on Tuesdays around 10 o'clock. You have to be registered to attend. So look me up on LinkedIn. It gives you information about the workshop there. It gives you my walt_glass@yahoo.com email address. So you can send it to me and request some availability, and I'll be glad to get you scheduled. So we're covering basics. We're like openings and closings, how to handle overqualified, salary, negative questions, star stories, all those kinds of things that can show how we can build rapport, make a connection, exemplify the value that we bring. All that sort of information is done in the workshop. The only requirement is a job description. You have to have a job focus. And we'll start with interviewing 99. It's not even interviewing 101. I would love to have you join. I call it learning without squirming. We can learn without having to be sitting on the hot seat, be sweating bullets just because we don't know how to answer a question. We'll talk about that. In this workshop, you can say, I don't know. You can say, start over. We'll talk about things. We'll discuss things. So be glad to have you join up. Just look me up on Walt Glass on LinkedIn. So has your interview exploded? Now that there's COVID, well, the workshops has the secrets decoded, and your landing will be noted.
Very good. Walt, thank you very, very much.
Walt's got some new words to rhyme.
All right, it's time for the career tip of the week. You can find it on CareerDFW and CareerUSA.org. A new tip each week. So Ellen, it's up to you. Sue Ellen, up to you. But it looks like you've decided to leave Bobby and head for a warmer, a more fun place to be.
Yes, I'm just getting my feet wet in the water. But today I have tips for virtual job interviews from home. It was written by Elizabeth Tippett. If you have the good fortune of scoring a virtual job interview in the middle of a pandemic, the initial euphoria of potential employment may soon be replaced with anxiety over what to wear, as well as putting your home life on display for a potential employer. And with good reason. Social scientists have found that traditional interviews without set questions or scoring metrics are poor predictors of job performance. When this happens, interviewers make subjective judgments based on irrelevant information, like physical appearance and nonverbal cues. Illegal stereotypes based on gender and race may also be at play. And unfortunately, employment litigation has not succeeded in tamping down these practices. Although many companies were successfully sued in the early 2000s for making subjective employment decisions in hiring, pay, and promotion, a Supreme Court ruling in 2012 made those claims nearly impossible to bring as a class action. As a result, companies have little incentive to ensure their interview practices relate to on-the-job performance. That left job candidates focusing much of their energy on making a good impression instead of demonstrating important job skills. And that was before the pandemic, when applicants had the benefit of a neutral conference room as a backdrop. Adding the personal details of your home environment and quarantine companions to the mix, whether human or animal, doesn't make it better. The advice of an employment lawyer and law professor boils down to this: you are under no obligation to introduce your prospective boss into your home life through video chat. In other words, there's no shame in attempting to recreate that conference room environment at home. But here are some specific questions. Number one, what should you wear? Pants. Definitely wear pants. Even if you think they can't see the lower half of your body. You wouldn't want to be violating that workplace harassment policy right out of the gate. Basically, you should dress the way you would for an in-person interview, which may be varying degrees of formality depending on the industry and the role you're interviewing for. When I worked in a law firm, it was common for prospective lawyers to wear a suit to the interview, even though the office itself was business casual and people dressed however they liked when working from home. If anyone in your social network currently works in the industry or for the company, don't hesitate to ask for their advice on what to wear. Number two, how should I set up the camera's background? Traditional job interviews are a contest of wills between a candidate's desire to conceal their true qualities and employers' efforts to suss them out through not so subtle questions like, what are your weaknesses? Ordinarily, you can expect a little help from the law in this regard, since companies shouldn't be asking questions that hint at a discriminatory motive, like your religion or whether you have a disability. Some states also place restrictions on asking about criminal arrests and convictions before making a job offer. Virtual job interviews upset the balance by revealing the contents of your home. This is fundamentally unfair in the interview concealment tug of war. It's not like your boss, let alone a potential boss, would show up at your doorstep and demand to see into your apartment or home. You, dear prospective job applicant, are getting no such inspection bonus and therefore need not offer your interviewer a portal into your personal life. That is why I see that I set up my laptop to point at a bare corner of wall. That way I reveal nothing about my questionable interior decorating and life choices. However, many would tell you that having a bookcase behind you with appropriate titles legible can only be a plus. Number three, should I hide my children? Certainly, you are under no obligation to voluntarily disclose your children's presence, and your prospective employer really shouldn't ask. Asking about children is often a proxy for gender discrimination, as mothers are disproportionately penalized for their status as parents. An example, a study by Stanford suggested that participants gave lower ratings and offered less pay to female applicants who listed their membership in the Parent-Teacher Association on their resume. By contrast, male applicants with children were offered higher salaries in the experiment than their childless peers. Does this mean that men should roll out their kids for an accidental cameo appearance to enhance their stereotypical role as family breadwinner? No, not necessarily. A study by a business professor suggests that men preserve their privileged status in part by concealing the child care work they actually perform. In interviews with 115 workers at a consulting firm, one man said he was able to perform his consulting duties without anyone realizing that he was also taking care of his son and downhill skiing 5 days a week. This elaborate ruse speaks both to the discrimination that men fear for revealing their child care obligations and to the strength of the default assumption that women are the primary caregivers. So parents, if you're inclined to shove a device and a lollipop in the general direction of a child who might blow your cover, don't feel guilty. You're not the only one trying to pass for a productive employee these days. So good luck with that virtual job interview.
Great, Sue Ellen. Thank you very, very much. All right, it's time for our video tip of the week. Let's see here. Some reason YouTube didn't want to cooperate last week, so let's see how we go this week. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. I'll have to find something for next week. All right, let's see here. All right, so coming up here in just a second, our speaker is PJ Dunn. He's going to be talking about strength finders and core clarity. He'll be, he's online, so he'll be with us in just a second. Coming up next week, I had to flip a couple speakers around. So next week, our speaker is going to talk about accountability groups, how to start one, what it should consist of. It's a really great presentation. It's something that I think everybody in job search needs to have an accountability group, get 3 or 4 people. And Clayton will talk about how to do that, how to form that next week. In 2 weeks, Jeff Crilly will be with us to talk about free publicity. And then on July 3rd, the Friday before July 4th holiday, we will have open forum again, and we will find out how to use Google Voice. We'll have a little presentation on how to set up a Google Voice number if you're interested. A little reminder, Career DFW, for those on Facebook and the North Dallas Career Focus Group are 2 separate organizations. I happen to lead both. That's the only reason we're sort of connected between the 2. Anybody who'd like to take over the North Dallas group on Friday mornings is welcome to do so. Just let me know, and you can take care of doing this every week. But you're not going to get Career DFW out of my hands. I want to keep the website going for as long as I can. So it's time for the main event now. For PJ, I know he's online. So PJ, I'll let you take over. You can share your screen and tell everybody who you are.
Excellent, excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. I guess I will find out today what I'm actually better at, and that is if I'm good at just doing this live and being able to see the faces, because I get so much more from that, or if I'm sitting here and doing it like a actor inside of a movie, which is doing it just for the camera. So let me get this screen up real quick, and we are going to have some fun today. We are going to talk about the strengths for sure, and we'll demystify some things, talk about some very important things to know, and then maybe even talk a little bit about, which I think we should do, is how would this be different? How is this particular assessment different than perhaps the others? You've probably seen a million of them, and by now there's one coming out every week. And so I'm gonna see if I can help a little bit with that as well. So if you're good with that, let's go ahead and just jump right on in. So life has nothing but, if anything, a lot of questions. And usually the largest question that we're always asking, especially when you're looking for a job, is, well, who am I? Right? The identity gets attacked when you end up leaving a job that you've been at for a long time, and now you're trying to say, well, what do I do now? You also might say again, why do I do what I do? So like, I understand that sometimes I'm very good at reading people, but I'm not very good at doing spreadsheets, or I'm very good at spreadsheets and I wish people were kind of more in the background. So there's that we're asking. We're also saying, why does it seem that others seem to have more talents than me? Why does it seem that they're so good at that and I'm not? And then that can also lead to, because we're in the era of superhero movies, hey, I see what some people are good at. I can see what Sue is good at. I can see what Walt is good at. But what's my superpower? What makes me great, right? And then if that's the truth, and we know it's a competitive environment, especially when looking for jobs, how do I level the playing field? If I think that they're looking for somebody who's more task-oriented, but yet I'm more people-oriented, how do I fit, or should I even try to fit into a job that maybe isn't necessarily a 100% match? And so these are serious questions. And of course, it's not that you're shy. It's not that you're not asking them. So let's take a look. I love quotes. And so here's the first one I want us to start off with, just to get you guys on the right track. And that's this: what lies behind us and what lies before us is certainly tiny matters when it compares to what lies within us. And this would be Ralph Waldo Emerson. Let's talk about the Clifton strengths and what the design of this is. So you've heard about it. In fact, I can't see everybody, but I'm going to imagine, well, how would I do this? I'm not exactly sure, Jeff, but I want to know how many people have actually taken this assessment. And I'm not able to see the chat room as well because I've got the full screen going. So
So if
I'm
everybody
gonna-
will just click on the yes, no button, let us know how many people have taken it. I'll give people a total.
Okay.
Most people have taken it. We're like, well, 28-7, 28-9.
Perfect. Perfect.
So
Okay.
about 2/3.
Good. That works for me. So then that way I won't be talking too esoterically, I guess, for some people. So let's take a look at this. So here's the design. The design is exactly this. It's kind of fits right with the quote, and that is to help us best understand what lies within us. We also know that this is also designed to show you how you do anything. It's not trying to tell you, well, because you're an achiever and you have responsibility, the only position you could ever be is a lawyer, or the only position you could ever be is a doctor. It's not designed that way at all. In fact, this is more freeing because, again, it shows you how you would do anything. So I know that when I've administered this assessment to many different groups, especially sales teams, you would think that the same talents would always show up for the sales people that were in the top 1%. The only talent that did keep showing up was competition. But other than that, almost anyone was getting in the top 5 and was selling a lot of product for the particular sales teams that I was working with. So you would think if it's just about having this certain 5, you would see them in all the top salespeople. It turns out the only commonality was just competition. So how were these people selling as much as the others that had competition who didn't have competition? They knew how to use the talents that they had. Also, this is the big one. I like to put this out there almost immediately. So this is not designed as a personality test. It gets lumped in with it, but it's actually not. It's actually an assessment designed to plot trajectory. Now, let me spend a little bit of time here. So when you look at DISC, when you look at the big 4, you look at DISC is talking about behaviors. You're either D, dominant, I, influencing, C, compliant, or S, steady. So it's talking about behaviors. Myers-Briggs is a personality assessment. They call it the 16 personalities. And so it has the different variations of that. You also have the Enneagram, which is also a personality assessment. Now, Clifton Strengths, what is that then? It does touch on behavior and it does touch on personality, but Clifton Strengths is about characteristics that you're born with. There's just certain things that you're already able and capable to do that you already have, that you can get a quick mastery on it if you actually put some skills with it. So this is about personality traits. And the reason why this is an important distinction is because personalities can change. Behavior can change, but your characteristic traits like freckles or blonde hair, blue eyes does not change. It's who you are. Now you may answer the assessment differently, which will give different results. That's true. But for the most part, anyone who takes the assessment usually doesn't get 5 brand new talents if they take it 5 years later. Usually 2 or 3 of the talents are still there. And then maybe some new ones moved in from the bottom of the top 10 up. Now, this is also designed to focus on your strengths and what's good about you. Psychology in the earlier days was more, if you would, negative to a degree. It was always about what was wrong with you. And Donald Clifton and Martin Seligman were some of the guys who came out and said, you know what, I'm tired of studying what's wrong with people. I'm tired of looking at the osises and itises. What's great with people? And so he started out with that. What would happen if we fixated on what's good with people as opposed to going, nope, they're good, they're horrible at this. Nope, they bite their fingernails. Nope, they twirl their hair too much. He wanted to take the focus and put it on something positive. So they started a whole brand new movement within psychology itself. And now you see a lot more positivity in the psychology rather than just looking at the osises. Now, for you as job seekers, here's one of the wonderful things about this. It's also designed to help give you vivid language on how to articulate the proclivities that you have that are both apparent and non-apparent. Let me go back and say that again. You now have powerful language to describe how you're valuable when you're on that job interview. For example, sometimes people will walk into the job interview and they will say things like, oh, but I'm a people person. You could put me anywhere. I could get along with anybody. Well, people person is very vague. It doesn't really say much. However, if you took the assessment and you test high in relator or empathy or individualization, you really are a people person. Now, instead of saying the generic term, I'm a people person, now you can say, hey, you know, I lead with empathy. I took the assessment and I've graded out in terms of the 34 prevalent talents in everyone. What I lead with is empathy. And here's how that's valuable for you. So with the teams that I'm working on, I can see different perspectives of people. I can walk in their shoes and therefore help us resolve conflict quicker. I see sometimes people go, well, I have empathy. How can I sell that on a job interview? Well, you're always dealing with people. So empathy is pretty good. And by now, with everything that's going on in the world right now, I think empathy could probably be a superpower right now. Imagine the people that are clashing. If they had empathy, they could actually hear each other instead of all the clashing that you see that's going on. But there's more, so let's keep going. So organizations, here's what's interesting about that. So 200 out of the Fortune 500 use the Clifton strengths. So there's some of the brands there, you know them, Facebook, Wells Fargo, Campbell's Soup, University of Minnesota, Sports Authority. But here's what's interesting. Facebook actually has people take the assessment, and then after they've taken the assessment, then decide what jobs that they want to put them in or what roles they want to put them in. They don't do it the other way around. They don't have the role and then try to find people for it. They bring in people and then have them take the assessment, and then from there, plot them or put them in the roles that they think that they'll be successful in based off of their results. That's pretty interesting things. So let's look at these talents. I've been talking about them for a little bit. There's 34, Dr. Don Clifton said that there were 34 prevalent talents. It could be more, but these are the most prevalent talent themes. As you can see, they're here in alphabetical order. Some of these make sense, right? Command should be a talent. Achiever should be a talent, right? Developer, discipline, that all sounds like a talent. But did you see there that relator is a talent? Positivity is a talent. Empathy, belief actually is a talent. And then of course, some people you see at the bottom when they see woo there and they go, hey, what's woo? And it just stands for win others over. These are your extroverts. These are the people who can strike up a conversation with a nickel and get it to talk back. That's just who those people are, right? And some people look at the top and they see a relator up there. One of the different events I was doing, someone said, hey, what's realtor doing up there? And I was like, well, my dyslexic friend, it's not realtor, it's actually relator. And thank you for letting me know where you are in the spectrum of dyslexia, but it all works out. Let's continue. Now, this is something I wanted to talk about a little bit. This is where the core clarity piece comes in. So when we look at the 4 domains of behavior, which has been established by psychology long ago, and this jumped on it immediately with Marsdell, we notice that there are 4 major domains that you could categorize any of the talents in. And we're going to see that there are some differences here, and we'll look at that as well. But the first domain we'll look at is executing. So these are your task-oriented people. These are people that are self-driven to get things done. These people that are in the executing category, we'll talk about the top and the bottom here in a second. These are the people that rather than talk about feelings, they'd rather talk about what's been done or what we can get done, and they're ready to keep moving. They're ready to keep moving forward. The second category there is the reflective or the thinking. So there's, at least that we understand, several ways of thinking. There's not just one way of thinking. We have several here, and we're going to talk about that as well. Third category is influencing. We talked about these people. There's some of those people that just walk into a room, they light it up. They can walk into the room and bring the room up, or they can bring the room down if they're in a bad mood. But these people get that subtle art of just walking in. They're just like the old commercials. When E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. Now, see, I dated myself there, but I think there's enough of us here who will know exactly who E.F. Hutton is. And if not, for my millennial friends, Google is still your friend, right? And I don't have to tell you that, you already know. And then that last group is the connecting group. Now, these are the people who seem to just get the pulse of people. They understand people. They truly are the people, right? And these are the folks who they worry about the relationship. So if we were to kind of do a simple digest of each one, executing, hey, I'm about the task and I'm self-driven. I don't need you to stand over me to make me get it done. In fact, I hate it if you try to micromanage me because I'm already an executor. That second group, hey, I may not move to action right away, but it's probably because I'm thinking, I'm considering, I'm washing it over in my mind, everything that's been said before I speak. And sometimes these folks have to be asked, hey, what do you think? Because they're still processing. That influencing group, we know them. They're probably in front of an audience somewhere. They're probably an activist. They're probably someone who's been in a band or lead singer or something like that. These folks love to get out there and do this. And social media really brings these people out a lot. You see a lot of videos now of people going, "Hi guys," and it seems so natural. But then when you try to get on camera, you feel like you got 2 or 3 left feet, and not for the influencers. And of course, the connectors, they're true blue. Now let's look at the disparity here. Now what I've done here off to the far right, what you'll see is there's the core clarity where they group these, and that's in the top part there. And then we see how Clifton Strengths also groups these. Now, the way I can kind of harmonize this, the best way that I know how, is to say that the way Core Clarity is looking at the talents is from an internal perspective, whereas Clifton Strengths, because they had the leadership book when they first put this out, is looking at it from an outside or an external perspective. So for example, if we take one of the talents, responsibility, for example, with Core Clarity, you see responsibility is a blue talent, a connecting talent in the 4th quadrant. But you notice responsibility is an executing talent if you look at the Clifton Strengths in that first group. Now let me explain what's going on. So with responsibility, here's what it looks like internally. Internally, I'm saying, you know what, I told Jeff I'd be there before 10 o'clock. I'm gonna be there, and if not, hell or high water, I will have to just continually apologize for not being there and that sort of thing. But it's my responsibility that's making me get there. Now, from the executing perspective, if I'm on the outside, people see me always running and doing all these things. They don't see that it's responsibility dropping it. They think, wow, he's a real good executor. He executes, he gets things done. So in this way, I would say there's about 12 of these that are in different categories. I would call them ambidextrous, meaning that depending on whether you're looking at them internal or external, they can look different. Now, some of these, it doesn't matter what it is, like focus is always going to be an executing talent, right? Because people that are focused are trying to execute, they have the blinders on and they don't let themselves get distracted easily. So some of these will stick in the same situation. We can also take positivity, for example. With Core Clarity, positivity is seen as an influencing talent because it is. If you're around positivity people, they love to go, woohoo, let's go, we can do this, let's get it, right? But then you'll notice that positivity shows up in the connecting with Clifton Strengths in the 4th category. And that is because you can see that positivity will influence people for certain, but who doesn't like to be friends, relationship with positive people? So you can see where positivity is very ambidextrous because it's an influencer, but it's also about friendship too, because we love to be around positive people. So this is something that you can look at when you take the assessment. You're going to get the Clifton Strengths. You're not going to get the Core Clarity. If you want to go to the Core Clarity site, you can go ahead and take your strengths and see how they match up there. They have all of this there. I am a disciple of Candace Fitzpatrick, who's a brilliant woman who came up with these domains actually before Clifton Strengths did. But since she went internal, then they decided, let's go ahead and talk about it from an external perspective and then let the crossover happen that way. But I wouldn't get too hung up on some of these, but some of these you will see they make sense. Let's keep going. So there is a scriptural component that I like to throw in right now, if I may. I do a lot of this with churches and ministries. And so here's the thing about strengths we can look at it from a scripture perspective, and that is that we are his workmanship. We're created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So when you see something that says made in Taiwan or made in USA, you get a sense of that brand. Well, here, our brand is we're the workmanship of Christ Jesus, created for good works. So there's something already built into us, and we're going to talk definitely about that as we decide to define terms. And here's the first term we're going to look at. So, and as a way to make this a bit interactive, and I hope this is okay, Jeff, I want, if anyone, is there someone there that would like to tell me what is a talent, or how do you understand talent?
Perhaps a God-given innate ability.
Okay, love it. Anyone else have a definition of talent?
Something that comes naturally to you that you do very well.
Love it. Anyone else want to throw in on talent?
A couple comments are going in the comment box. Skill or ability, key skills, natural abilities.
Yes, yes. And that's right. Let's take a look at the clinical, but everyone there has touched on it for sure. And it's this. This is a naturally, so it's innate, Reoccurring thought, feeling, or behavior that can be, this is important, productively applied. So if you're good at annoying people, we're not going to call that a talent. We're talking about being productively applicable. So think about that. First of all, it's no doubt that everyone has talent, but not everyone always feels like they have talent, especially if they're with people who have turned their talents into strengths. More on that next. So here's the wonderful thought about this. Doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, gender, where you live, where you grew up, where you went to school, everyone has talents. And in fact, there's 34 of them. What makes us unique is the order that they're in. So we'll keep going. Here's the next question. And I would like to find out, what is a strength? Someone tell me, what is a strength?
Strength.
Something you're good at.
Okay, sounds a little bit like a talent, but let's keep going. This is good. Who else?
I think strength is stronger than talent. You may have many talents, but strength is something that really is like your top 2 or top 3.
How about a talent that's been developed and able to be displayed instantaneously?
That's incredible. You're spot on. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Now, how about this? I want you to see this language here. Near perfect performance. And notice what brings it out? It's during an activity. And oftentimes you're not even thinking about it. And people are going, and I think what we used to say, the word used to be the knack. Man, you've got the knack. You've got the knack for that. You're an ace at that. Well, actually what's happening is, the difference here is talents are innate. They're already there, right? They're there. They're not necessarily developed because there's raw talents, right? We'll talk about that. But notice it's a strength when you can call it up and dial it up on demand and actually aim it. And that's what we want. So if you're on a job interview, you need to show them the value you bring. You need to show them your strengths. And hopefully what you're able to do is whenever you look at the job description should tell you a task, a bunch of list of things that this person's going to do. Well, your talents will speak to whether you could do some of those. Here's a dead giveaway when you're looking at a job interview. When it says the successful candidate will be responsible for ... Well, you hear the word responsible right there. So if you're someone who leads with responsibility and they use the word responsible a lot in the job description, it's okay to show them your strengths report and say, listen, this isn't my opinion that I'm a responsible person. This is 50 years of behavioral science that says this is how I grade out. Notice I'm using the term grade out. If you're a CEO, if you're anybody in a C-level position looking at talent, you do everything by metrics. This is a metrics. And I would even argue that this is even more powerful than just a reference from a friend. They expect a friend to say good things about you. But if I can show them the science to say, listen, this is my proclivity. This is the thing I lean to the most, right? So if anyone here has learner, if you're not telling people on your job interview that you're teachable, you're missing out. Because the one thing that people worry about is how is this person gonna take to our new skills training, everything we give them. If you lead with learner or learners in your top 5, that's the thing that you say. You show them that you're valuable and that you love to learn new things. It's not a negative for you, right? Because learner is all about going from ignorance to competence in something. It's about the journey. It's not about being a know-it-all. It's about the journey of, hey, what might I learn next, right? And for me, that's number 4. So I love to learn new stuff, right? So this is just ways that you can see this. And we'll talk about how you can answer the strengths question, the weakness question, because there's some interesting ways to do that as well. Let's keep going. All right, this one should be easy. I think everybody can probably shout in on this one. So someone please define to me, what is a weakness then?
Something you don't do well.
Right, thanks Karen. What else?
Could it be as simple as a non-strength, right? Professed talents that are listed that you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about that? Anyone else? We should be very familiar with this, right?
Something that takes a lot of effort to do.
Yep.
Yep.
Something you have to be doing because you know you're not very good at it.
Thank you, Carlos. Love it. Let's take a look. Here we go with the clinical definition. Behaviors, and notice this, sometimes strengths, that get in the way of prime performance. Now, I do a whole study on the imposter syndrome. And we know right now that there's at least 5 different imposters that you can struggle with at any given time. It's not just low self-esteem, but there's this imposter syndrome that attacks people sometimes. But a weakness is simply this. I'm going to probably be very, very good at speaking and talking to folks because I do have woo and I have maximizer. But if you tell me to sit down and write a book, something that's Orwellian, something that's really well, I'm not a writer. I am definitely a speaker 9 times out of 10. Now, can I learn to write? Can I get better? Absolutely. But the person who loves to write will bury me 9 times out of 10 in writing in any contest that has to do with writing because they love it. They take it to the bathroom with them. They take it to the bedroom with them. They take it everywhere with them. When you love something, you're attached, like the little kid that always takes the blanket around. When it's a strength and you're working in your strength, your productivity level goes up, up, and up. Here's what's wonderful about strengths as well. We don't know what the cap is. Your strength is unlimited. We have no idea how good you could be, right? We don't know how good Jimi Hendrix could have been a guitar if he didn't pass away early. We don't know how much better Martin Luther King's speeches would have gotten if he wasn't killed. We don't know. There's no cap to your strength at all, right? You'll get better and you'll get better because you already enjoy it. You already love it. Now, what do people avoid? If I can dip into my little behavioral scientist mindset right now, the thing that people avoid are the things that they know they're just not that good at. They put it off. They put it off. They don't have the right energy now to propel themselves to even be remotely good at it. And even if you get good at it, if you bring something that's a -2 to +3, is that really good on a scale of 10? No. But if I'm already a 7 at something and I love doing it, the chances of me getting that 7 to a 10 or beyond is much higher because I'm already going to do the things that I already love. And I know this makes tons of sense, right? But interestingly enough, in action, we don't necessarily, and there's reasons for that as well. So how do we turn these talents then into a strength? We do have an equation. Let's take a look at it. And here it is. Now, I do a lot of presentations with attorneys, and attorneys love to argue, which is fine, right? That's what they have to do. So I told them, break this apart. Take this apart. Tell me that this doesn't work at all. I've been doing this now for 17 years. I still have not had an attorney say, well, here's actually, now they try to pontificate, of course, but they couldn't break this down. And this is what this is saying. If we take talent, which we've already agreed everyone has, we add knowledge, which can be learned, yes. Skills, which can be taught, yes. Practice, which is just repetition, 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 you will invariably get a strength, okay? If you say, well, no, that didn't happen for me. Well, did you have all the knowledge that you needed to know on the subject? Are you skilled at it? Is there another skill you could still pick up to get better at it? Or did you just take the class one time and thought you could just do it perfectly? No, you have to practice, right? You do that, you will get a strength. Again, what do I love about this? Has nothing to do with your gender, nothing to do with your race, where you're born, your socioeconomic status, has nothing to do with any of that. This is true all day long. So you have talent. Can you get the knowledge? Yes, you can. Can you get the skills? Of course you can. And practice, it's just doing it again and again and again until you can do it by rote mastery. It will become a strength. So let's take a look at this. So talents, how do they grow? Well, they grow with an investment in the areas of relationship, proper expectation, and then rewards and recognition. So if you're trying to do the talent all by yourself, you're going to probably miss out on some knowledge. So you need some other people around. And then those people can help you set proper expectations. And then when you have that, then you reward yourself when you hit when you hit beyond the plateau to the next level. And then there's yet another level, right? People won't do it. Your brain, if we get into neuroscience for a minute, neuroplasty, your brain won't do anything if it says, well, what's the fun in this? What's the reward? It's the reason why it's tougher for the alcoholic to not be an alcoholic, because the brain says, I'm stressed. What do we do that'll make us forget about all this? I know exactly what we do, right? If there's not a reward involved, you're not going to be able to make yourself do it. you just won't, or you'll talk yourself into it some kind of weird way. How about this? Talents can be raw. Here, let's get into this. Talents can be raw or they can be refined. But look at raw. When it's raw, it's messy. It's you just kind of using it unproductively and self-centeredly. You're saying things like, well, I'm a command person, so I'm supposed to come in here and boss people around. That's very, very raw. When the talent is refined, it's informed and it's others centered. So somebody who's got the talent of command realizes that command to the negative can look bossy. But really what a command person does is they see chaos and they know how to take that chaos and turn it into some sort of order. So they start to move, they start to delegate, they start to get people, they start to pull people in, they look for buy-in and they get things done. We need those kinds of people, right? You want the air traffic controller to have command, because if two planes are on the same, you want them to all of a sudden go, Johnny, switch that by 10 degrees. Erica, do this over here. And then I'll tell them by the radio to change the flaps and they can move this. You want people who just immediately just start going, right? But when they're refined, they recognize, well, before I just start swinging around my command and hitting people over the head with it, who else is in the room? And what talents might they lead with? Oh, now that I know something about them, here's going to be how I will command or delegate in this room. That's refinement. And that's what we should all do. So just because you have the talent doesn't mean it's refined yet. And the more you refine it, then the more you'll see it'll be a heavy part of being a strength. And then again, this is something that's been identified. We all have them. What makes us unique is where we're going next. So let's take a look. So again, Bible scripture, love to pull it out. So this really, I think, encapsulates it perfectly. So Psalm 139:14, might have seen it on a coffee cup or a bumper sticker. It says, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. And look at this, the psalmist wants you to know, and my soul knows it very well. Okay? So we are uniquely and wonderfully made. In fact, we couldn't get depressed about not being good at something if we didn't think we had the ability to in the first place, right? So let's take a look. How unique are you? Exactly like this visual representation of this thumb right here. So let's take a look. For you to meet somebody with the exact same top 5 talents in the exact same order, you would need to meet 33.4 million people before you would find that. And even then, when you met them, gender will change it, because female brain, male brain's different. Where they grew up might have a different bent on how they actually work. But even if you find the top 5, they still might not act exactly the same way. Now check this out. How much more unique? To find someone with the same top 10 talents, 447 trillion, right there. Now the thing is with this, there's only 7 billion people on the face of the earth. So you're not going to run into this number of people. So again, see how unique, and then look at this. We don't even have a number for this, a word for this number yet. For someone to have the same 34 talents in the exact same order as you, 295 plus 36 zeros. So this is how incredibly unique you are. What I love about this is you're not bragging if you're talking about uniqueness, because it's actually in you. It's there. And you should be saying this on the interview. You can show them, hey, how I feel like I'm valuable to this company is, I noticed in the job description, you talked about people who are timely, people who are, well, my number 1 talent is focus. I block out distractions easily to get things done, right? So you're not just, again, saying things from an egotistic standpoint. You're using data and science that's telling you, that's been studied over 50 years, that this is actually how you grade out, right? So unique, absolutely. Here's the other freeing thing about this. I don't need to be Jeff. Jeff doesn't need to be me. Barbara can be Barbara. Barbara doesn't need to be Susan. Susan doesn't need to be Barbara. Karen doesn't need to be Susan or Barbara or Carlos or me. She can be who she is because uniquely she's talented. We just got to take the lid off of it and see where she can go with it, where I can go with it, where Carlos can go with it, where Jeff can go with it. Now, there is the other side of the talents. And I put this image up there so that you guys can see it. I got this from being in a restaurant one day, and I was just thinking, and always in my head, and I saw it and I said, this is the perfect analogy. So when your talents are not serving you, we call this, I would call it SOS. And for me, it's talents that are overserved. So strengths overserved is SOS. So your talent, when it's raw, you're the coffee and everyone else is the cup. As you can see, if you're that raw with it, you pour and you make a mess and you overfill other people's capacity to try to understand it, especially if they don't have that talent. So especially if the talents are opposite. So if you're an adaptability person, that's completely different than a consistency person. A consistency person wants the balance, wants the fairness, wants to be measured in its steps. Adaptability person looks reckless because they can adapt to anything, so they're not worried. So people think, well, why don't you care? It's not that adaptability people don't care. They're just naturally flexible. So if we don't look at it correctly, it can be wrong. But if we swing it at each other, we think it's a negative that someone's adaptive because it looks like you don't stand for anything. No, they're just flexible. And the consistency person, man, you just won't get off script, will you? You just won't see the gray areas. No, it's just that I'm going to lead with, hey, what's the balance here? What's the fairness piece to this? So when you look to the left here, what you'll see is when you see people, when you see that your greatest strength can also be your greatest weakness. Now, see, this speaks to the strength-weakness question that you'll sometimes get, right? And so I don't think anyone should ever lie on this question. And I think deflecting it by trying to say, me, weaknesses? I don't have any weaknesses. Please don't answer that way. Because if you do, you told them right then and there that you're uncomfortable with the truth. Everybody has weaknesses, but it's going to be how you talk about it. So, for example, and we're going to do this as an exercise. I want more conversation. We're going to talk a lot more here towards the end, right? So, for example, a focused person. What's great about focus? Well, let me pick another one because that's part of our exercise. But let me take positivity. What's great about positivity? Well, positive people keep the team going because they're up and they're excited. They don't just tank as soon as things go bad. But what could be the downside if that person's being super positive about everything all the time when people are in pain and hurting? Now that positivity person looks like somebody who's insensitive. So nobody likes a cheerleader at a funeral. So if a positivity person goes and they're really raw with their positivity and they go to the funeral and they see the person that's grieving and they go, cheer up, old chap. Your dad's not in pain anymore. At least he's in a better place now. You said he's a Christian, so that means he's in heaven. Now that's all true and that's all positive. But is that the right time to say that? Now you're the coffee overpouring this grieving person right now with your positivity. Now empathy would get that, right? So the empathy person at the funeral would try to stop the positivity person because they know what they're about to do and try to reroute them so that the grieving person can just grieve. Because empathy says, I can get right there in your shoes. Now, what we also want to do is we want to be aware of how our talents are affecting people. We need to know, are we turned to a 10 when we really need to be maybe at a 6 or a 7 with the talent at that moment? If it's true that you read books in context, you also need to read people in context. So if your talent then is turned way up, this goes to that next part there, you need to use what we call the dimmer switch theory. And that is that, you know, some lights might be too bright, so you dim them. You still need light, but you just don't need that much light. They still need your positivity, but maybe going overboard and looking kind of Pollyannish or maybe insensitive because of the timing of it doesn't work. So maybe they need that positivity at 5, not at 10. And in fact, your whole life, when it comes to relating with people, is understanding where are you at. And if you can't see people bristling because you're beating them up with your maximizer, your positivity, your focus, if you just don't see that, then your strengths aren't working for you. They're working against you. And you want them to work for you, right? And same thing on a job interview. A job interview, you don't want to walk in and go, well, because I'm restorative, that means I can fix anything that happens up here. And I don't even know why we're going through this interview process, right? No, right off the bat, the person goes, wow, that's a lot. That's really almost gaslighting me right now that this person's talking on this level. What will this person be like when he wins his first award or prize for something or gets something done? Will he just be walking around shoving in people's faces? Right? So we don't want that. We want to be aware of how people are responding to our talents. So now what? This is a big question because a lot of times people take the assessment. I see them a couple months later and I go, hey, so what were your talents? And they go, I think I had like sympathizer and person who sees everything. And it's like, wow, if these are your talents, and if those talents need to be developed with knowledge, skills, and practice, what you're telling me is you just stood still since the last time I saw you. Someone said it earlier, and it may have been Walt, but companies want to hire.
No sound.
PJ, I don't know if you can hear us. Whoops. PJ, you've gone.
Performance. Hello?
Now you're back. Okay. You
Am
lost.
I back?
Yeah, you're back now.
You mentioned my name and it died.
Oh, yes. Yes, I was thinking that Walt had said something about earlier about, you know, the companies want to hire confident people. And I'm telling you now that the most confident people are the people who know what their talents are. They've already started polishing them, and now their strengths. And now what they do is they start to aim the strengths. They don't just go, hey, look, I'm a relator, I'm an achiever. They're aiming them, and that's much more powerful. So know this, just taking the assessment is just the beginning. It's not the end. And by the way, notice I'm saying assessment, not test. Some folks have test anxiety. And with test anxiety, people will maybe not answer well, or they'll just put it off and not even take the assessment. But see, a test you can fail. You can't fail an assessment. Assessment is just trying to find out what's the inventory in the room. That's the way to look at this. It's not trying to trick you. It's not going to be used, hopefully, if we have it in good hands, it's not going to be used against you to say, oh, well, you're not strategic enough, so we're not going to hire you. That's not what this is supposed to be used for at all. So what can we do now to get to the top of this and make this even better? Well, first, and we've been talking about it a little bit today, you want to assess your talents. Are they working for you like you think they are? Or are they working against you in some ways because it's turned up too loud? Right? Second, if you've got it down, you understand it, now it's going to be about how you finesse, because you have to have a rhyme nowadays, right? You have to assess, finesse, and attest, right? You have to rhyme these things. But with finessing, this is great because it means you're so intimately aware, you have so much mental awareness and self-awareness that you actually aim your talents because they're polished into strengths, and you know exactly how to use that strength and why that strength would be important. Even if other people around you don't know why, individualization would be a big thing. And then finally, here's what I really love about this, is you learn your strengths, go out and be a testimony to other people, because remember up top I said everybody has strengths, everybody has talents that they can then polish their strengths. Well, when people see you work in your talents and watch you polish them into strengths, people naturally will say, well, how can I do that? And then if you're able to say, hey, here's what helped me, then you're learning together. By the way, managers, you need to be able to do this, because a good manager is a good leader, and a good leader is a good manager as well. And a good leader looks for other leaders, which means they're probably a couple of steps behind you in the skill set part, but you can teach them how to get there. So for example, if you're a manager and you're looking for a job for another management position or leading over people, you need to talk about your strengths here, because if you're a person who can see the other leaders in the room, you're going to find people who are going to be more of an allyship with you than in contrarian with you, right? Because people get set off when they think, this person doesn't even know me. They don't even care about me. They don't even know what's great about me, right? So here's some numbers for my techie people, the geeky people, the people who love numbers. Here they are. So here's what we found. And this is the Gallup group, and this is updated. This is what we found, is that the people that are actually focusing and utilizing their strengths daily, they're 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life. This is a no-brainer. If you're doing what you're already good at and you get to do it more, and then people are paying you for it, yeah, you're not calling in sick a lot. You're not trying to take super long vacations, all right? Look at the second piece here. Those same people now are 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. This is something that Gallup also measured, because employee engagement is important to a team. You're the asset. Okay, you're the asset. The company can't get it done without you. And the company's job is to hire the best talents and put them on a team so that they work together, and then the best leaders know how to draw the best out of them to get that team to hit phenomenal numbers, right? And so when people are engaged, again, they're not calling in sick. Now, I also notice some of the folks that I've done this with and teams that I've done this with, I notice that when they use their strengths every day, they report about a 7.8% greater productivity. People that are productive want to do more, want to be more, want to give more, will make more extra sales calls at the end of the day than those who don't. And then of course the teams, when they sit down with me and we do the whole feedback, they usually end up showing about an 8.9%, almost just a little under 10, if you will, greater profitability as a team when everybody knows what their strength is, what the role is, and what role they play on the team, the seat that they have on the bus, as Jim Collins would say. And when that's happening, we spend less time arguing about what we thought people were doing, what we thought that person was going to do, and so forth. All right. And this is all stuff that you can find the moment you understand your talents and your strengths. And then when you're able to articulate it, the better you can be counted in the pot with everyone. All right. So let's do it. Let's do something to get everybody involved here. As my voice tries to get a little squeaky here. We're going to do this exercise. The first one, we're going to do it together. And then I'll have someone do one of these. And then at the end, if there's a certain talent that you want to do, we can do it as well. So let's start with focus. We'll do that one together. We're going to look at what's great, what's not so great, and then how do you offset that or work around that talent or get it to be more refined. So again, what's great about focus people? They're not easily distracted. Once they get locked in on something, they're there. Now, what may not be so great is that they're so locked in that they miss the things that are going on in the peripheral, right? These might be the people who are the last ones to leave when there's a fire drill because they're so focused on what they're doing. They're not getting up right away when everybody else is getting up and they're running, right? And then you think about the offset to this. The people that I coach that are focused, I tell them, well, put in some time in the day to make breaks that you get up and actually talk to your colleagues. Because if they don't do that, they literally could come in and put in 8 hours, 10 hours, and not even talk to anyone because they're that focused, right? And then what that creates in the culture there is people saying, well, he's not very friendly. He doesn't even try to talk.
And you're back.
Uh-oh. Man, I do not know what's happened there. Does anybody have responsibility in their top 5? I want to hear you go through this one next. Anybody?
Yeah, this is Tony. I do.
Okay, Tony. So tell me, Tony, what's great about your responsibility?
You can depend on me. I'm going to get the job done if it kills me.
Yes, love it. Now, how has that sometimes been a disadvantage for you?
I have not been good at what I would call strategic, managing up, looking ahead long term. What are the
Tony, are you still there, Tony?
Sorry, did you hear that?
Okay,
I only got about half of what you said, Tony.
Okay, sorry, let me try again. I got bounced off. The drawback is that I'm not strategic. I'm not good at looking ahead. Long-term strategy, what are the implications? It's more kind of short-term, get the immediate task done.
Yes, that's right. A lot of times responsibility people will make themselves responsible for things out of just the idea that they like to be responsible, especially if no one else offers to do it. Responsibility people sometimes will look around and go, okay, well, I'll do it. I guess if I want it done right, I need to do it anyway. But then what that does is that makes them overcommit to too many things because of their responsibility. So tell us, Tony, how do you work around that?
I need coaching, but you're right about a good point about it. I do tend to overcommit. And if no one else steps up, I'm going to step up, and I need to be better about putting up boundaries.
Yes. And that is the key word there. And this is going to be the cheat sheet for the next one as well. It is about boundaries. So a responsibility person might tell themselves, you know what, I'm only going to be responsible for 6 things today. And if anything, if I agree to take on something else besides 6 things, I'm going to have to defer and let someone else get. Yes.
May I offer also, I too have responsibility and run into the same rut. And I've found a successful way of helping myself put that boundary on is to help others realize how they can take on something and be more responsible and use my talent to coach them to be more responsible. And therefore, there's more people around the table that'll raise their hand and take that responsibility.
Cliff, that is great. Thank you for that. How about positivity? Anybody on the call that has top positivity in their top 5? Anyone?
We're all negative.
I do. No, I have it in my top 5.
Okay. So tell us, what's great about positivity?
Well, I believe we can do it. And so the people around me tend to pick up on that and believe we can do it too.
Yes, love it. And when is that maybe not worked out as well for you?
When I couldn't do it.
Because then people thought, I'm sorry,
sometimes, you think, oh yeah, I can do that. And then you find out, yeah, I can do that, but it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So any ideas on how you might offset that or work around that?
Well, listen, try to get input. which is not a real natural thing for me to say, okay, tell me what you think. And that doesn't come naturally.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So for that last box, we can pick any talent. Anybody want a certain talent for us to look at together? Anyone?
Woo.
Woo. Okay, that's Barbara Townsend. So Barbara, you have woo, I suspect.
No, I don't.
No, oh, you just want to. Anybody have woo besides me on this call today? Anyone?
I do.
Okay, Deborah, tell us what's great about your woo.
Well, I don't mind meeting new people. I go into a room and if it's quiet, you know, I'll start talking to people and usually I get conversations going. That's a
Okay.
positive thing.
Okay. Has it ever been a bad situation for you with your woo?
Yeah, I think sometimes people don't want to talk to you and you keep forcing it. And they just are more focused, maybe a focused person that is working on something. And so I have to try to take their cues that they're not wanting to talk right now.
Okay, that's good. So then how might you, so what's the boundary that you might set as your offset?
You know, one thing is I'm trying to do better at reading people, to take their cues, to say they're not real optimistic or there's something bothering them right now, that they don't want to just start with small chit chat, etc. PJ, are you there?
There we go. I think we
Okay.
missed the last part of that. Could you say that last part, Deborah, for us?
Yeah, I was saying, I think, you know, it's about going in and reading people better. Like, you know, not everyone, sometimes people are more focused and trying to read their cues, making sure that they want to participate in a conversation. Or sometimes the other thing I think is you don't, you know, I want to move on and talk to someone else. So maybe making the conversation a little deeper before I move on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, woos are great at getting things started, meeting people. They're naturally likable people as soon as they walk into the room. If they're not careful, they can tend to dominate the conversation because they're just enjoying that the people are enjoying them, you know? And then, of course, naturally, the offset would be that they ask more questions. Than they're able
PJ,
to. Yes.
I just have a question. So I feel like that describes me, but I have no woo.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there's other talents, and that's a great question because sometimes there's other talents that kind of look and kind of act in certain ways or look like they have the attributes of another talent. For example, we talked about the ambidextrousness of responsibility. On one hand, it looks like it's a very relationally driven thing. Hey, I don't want to be late because I told Jeff I'd be there on time. But then from the outside, it looks like I'm just a busy bee, just getting things done, but really it's my responsibility. So yeah, sometimes there's talents that will kind of mirror the other one, though it's a little bit different purpose. So sometimes positivity can look like woo and woo can look like positivity, right? Because they're both kind of upbeat. They're both about getting energy from people, right? So they do touch each other, but then positivity is more about an outlook on life, where woo is more about, hey, I need to get these people to like me and I want to like them, right? So you will see some overlap with some of these. Let's take some questions now, because I know you have them. I want to make sure we get them all in. So let's go.
We've got a couple questions. People have popped in. Number one, Susan asks, is it best if your top 5 strengths were spread over all 4 of the domains? I assume it means you're balanced. Is it desirable to have the top 5 strengths spread over all 4?
I love that. That's a great question. So it can be. It can be. It depends on the environment that you're in. But I would say that it's good in the sense that, and it has a struggle too, if you have a talent in each one of the domains, you're probably able to shift gears and feel what the other people feel or think how other people think and this sort of thing because you have a talent in that particular quadrant. Now, the problem can be that when people are well-rounded at a lot of different things, they then lose their purpose and they say, well, what am I good at then? If I'm able to talk with the thinkers and I'm able to relate to the relators, I'm able to influence with the influencers, and I'm able to do the tasks with the task people, if it's not looked at correctly, you might think, oh man, I just don't fit in. I'm just a jack of all trades, but a master of none. But actually, what you are is glue on a team, right? Because those domains are going to show up. And the fact that you have a talent and an extra one in one of the extra domains there it means that you have the relatability, the ability probably first to try to understand and get different points of views because you know how to come at it from a thinking perspective. You know how to come at it from a task perspective, and you know how to come at it from, relating and influencing because you have a talent there, right? So it's a good question. I think those people, if they're in positions of being in front of a lot of people and having to influence or connect with or grow or raise or teach a bunch of people, I think these people to be pretty astute at what they might see based off of what they know about the talents in the different quadrants.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. Barbara asked, should we put our strengths on our resume? I've been told yes, and I've been told no.
Yeah, I love this question, and I don't understand the fear in it, actually. I would say yes. I put it on everything that I have. It starts more conversations than not. People go, oh, so you're a maximizer too. Now, the other side of the argument was, yeah, but if they're looking for a strategic and you don't have strategic in your top 5, then you probably won't get the job then. And so it'll be death by strength. And I'm like, but if the job is asking for strategic and that's really not you could get in there and take the job and do it, a strategic would probably be the better fit person for that job in the first place. So I don't see the fear in saying, well, I'm afraid I'll get excluded if I put it on there. Now, other people may, but I don't come from a position of fear. I come from confidence. I'm going to be so good at telling you what my top 5 are that you won't worry about that I have empathy number 34, which I do. But people never think of it because when they see my woo-ness, they never think that I couldn't empathize. They see that I'm still likable, even though I may not have empathy nowhere near my top 20. Yet people still find me able to relate to them and kind of put myself in their shoes. I had to learn how to do it. It's not natural, but I could do it. All right.
Okay.
But great question.
Thank you. All right. Susan asked, what are your thoughts on taking an assessment a second time? When I first took it, I was laid off for the first and only time in my life. Now, 3 years later, I'm employed. I just lost a parent. I'm in a very different place now. Is it worthwhile taking the assessment again?
Yeah, so this is a good question as well. I like the idea that you can take it more than once. I don't think you need to do it like every other year just to check back and see if something's moved or changed or whatever, right? Because you're going to answer questions based off of where you are. Your top 5 shows up because of nature and nurture. Nature, and that this is kind of who you are, some of the ones that never change. And then the ones that do shift when you take it again were the ones that were probably there because of nurture. And that was because you had to survive. And so you started to become like your surroundings in order to survive. It's the evolutionary biological response. So I think you could take it again. I don't think you need to take it 5 times, because here's what happens. If you take it, say like 4, 5, 6 times, you're eventually going to know the questions, which is going to taint how you answer the questions. I think the first time you take the assessment is probably the most authentic because you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know the clinical definitions of the different talents. But I think 4th or 5th time around, you're probably going, okay, I want to be a maximizer. So I already know what a maximizer is. I'm just going to check this every time I think it's asking about excellence. All right.
All right. Nancy asked, how can I work better with a woo person?
How can I work better with a woo person? Okay. So
you can call me.
Well, actually, this is good because I don't know what you have, Nancy. Like, is there a talent that you have that's opposite of woo? I don't know the context to that question. So if you have some context, give it to me. But until the context, I'll just go ahead and just say working better with woos is probably a situation where you're showing a little bit of what your talents are and what the great parts of that is. And since the woo wants to be liked by you, when you start to show them, hey, these are the kinds of things that I'm interested in, then they are attracted to it because woos want to be liked. And the quickest way to be liked is to like things that other people like. Now, not from a fake perspective, those are the raw woos when they just think, when you go, yeah, I like global warming. Hey, yeah, me too. Hey, I like bumper stickers. Yeah, me too. If you're doing that, no. But woos want to win you over. And if they understand what you like, then that helps them decide, oh, well, here's what I need to get on board with them on before I start going here.
Because I'm kind of like Barbara. My woo was really low, but I'm really high in empathy and responsibility. Yeah. So, connectedness and the arranger. I'm the glue. I'm a project manager, program manager. So I think that does describe it, but I was interested that, okay.
Absolutely. Well, and see, the talents that she just listed, she's mostly in the connecting domain. And so she's a project manager, meaning that she's over people and she's also doing projects. So there's a technical side, but a heavy people side, because if people don't feel like they're appreciated, they'll slough off on the part of the work that they're supposed to do and push it off on other people and say, well, I thought so-and-so was supposed to do that. So what we see is that Nancy then this is her selling point. This is a valuable point is that, hey, she really is a people person, but she doesn't have to say it now. She says, you know what? The way I lean into people and understand them is through my relator, my connectedness, right? And she can list all these things now. So it's not that Nancy's going to fail because the people couldn't get to a right place. It had to be that there was some crazy time constraint that she couldn't hit because she was worried about how that might affect the people if she put them under that kind of duress, right?
Right. Okay. Andy asked, what are your thoughts about having conflicting strengths in your top 5? I have both consistency and adaptability in mind.
Yes, this is a great question. So I coach a gentleman that has that right now. And so it's helping him understand, when does your adaptability take over? And then when does your consistency take over? And you'll probably see it's probably on different things. Like if it's work-related things, it could be more that you're adaptable. When it's home-related things, you might be more connected. But you have to take a look and see which one is pulling the hardest. Now, they can work together. It's just, this is that whole refinement thing. So you can say, because I know I'm adaptable, I'm also aware that people think that I don't take a stand on anything because I'm so flexible. So therefore, the way for me to act consistent now is show people this side of me, what I do. And it's going to be a lot of thinking to yourself about, I know what my adaptability does and what it looks like when it's wrong, when it looks like it's labeled as doing something wrong. And I also know what my consistency can look like and how it can also frustrate people. What makes most sense in the context of what I'm looking at right now. Should I lead with my adaptability? Or should I lead with my consistency? And it'll take a while. I'm saying it very easy, like it's very easy to do, but no, it'll take a while, but you'll start to see how you're enriching those themes.
Okay. On Facebook, Patricia asked, and I'm not really sure what the question is here, is I took the Strength Finders back in 2011. So these talents aren't listed at this higher level. So I don't really understand your question, Patricia. If you want to put a little bit more explanation in the comment box, we'll get back to you and try to come up with what it is you're trying to focus on. Cecile asked on Zoom, I have a friend who took the test. I have a friend, so we'll see who this really is. And recently mentioned that he is not satisfied with his top talents. What do you say to this person to encourage them?
Yeah, so what I have to do now is I have to now put on my psychology hat, if you will, and I have to be able to ask them, what is it that they're attaching to the talent? So for example, I have a client, real quickly, she's got command. She hates it because everybody always, when she was growing up, thought that she was just this bossy boots. In fact, that's what one of her family members called her grandmother called. I tell this story all the time, and it's originally told by one of the other StrengthsFinder folks as well, but I just remembered it because I lived it as well. And so sometimes people attach a negative meaning to the talent because it didn't show up well for them. So for example, this lady was high in command, but she hated it because her grandmother used to call her bossy boots. Why did she call her bossy boots? Because when she was a kid, whenever the kids would come over to play and she was at Meemaw's house, she would tell the kids, okay, we're gonna play cops and robbers. You're gonna be the cop. I'm gonna be the robber. You're gonna be the damsel in distress. You're gonna be this. You're gonna be that. And her grandmother was like, well, aren't you just a little bossy boots? And so because of that one thing, she's her whole life seen it as a negative. So it showed up at number one, and it's correct because she's been that way her whole life. It's nature, right? But she hated the connotation. So sometimes you have to ask them, hey, what is it about positivity that you don't like? What is it about empathy that you don't like? And you have to kind of dig a little deeper and find out what's attached to it.
Okay. Somebody else asked here, is it advisable to publish your top 5 strengths in the About section of my LinkedIn profile?
Absolutely. I always ask the question, what's the harm? What's it going to hurt? What's it going to do to make it a bad thing? And now, if you want, you can say, because I think the fear sometimes is, yeah, but if I put individualization up there, who knows what that means? Okay, well, you know that some of the talents are not as obvious, like focus and positivity is pretty obvious and responsibility. But if you have one that isn't, you can write just a short little summary of how that shows up in you, right? And you might just do a quick little sentence on, hey, I'm a harmonizing person, which means I like to keep the consensus. I like to keep the peace. I also, right, and you can write them and use the 5 strengths as a way to maybe write a small 5-sentence little paragraph at the top.
In fact, that sort of leads exactly what I was going to show people. I'm going to pop up my LinkedIn profile here. So here's my About section. Let me turn on annotation so I can, so see if you can figure out where I talk about who I am. So I'm a leader, I maximize, I'm analytical, I'm responsible and deliberate. So there are my top 5 right there in a statement. Instead of just listing them, I sort of explain to people who I am. So
masterfully done. And that's what that should be, because basically your LinkedIn profile, your resume, that should be a trailer, not a movie, but the trailer to your movie. And in that trailer, you got to put the sizzle. What's the thing that's going to make people going to watch the movie or read the rest of the resume or the rest of the LinkedIn profile? So I think you've got 5 great descriptors here that you can use, and think about how you use the strategic. Maybe you use it to strategize people. Maybe use it to strategize processes. Maybe use it to strategize, consensus. But you're going to focus that strategy somewhere and somehow.
Right. Do we have any other questions? I'm looking here. Oh, see here. What about strength finders as a corporate tool? Entire companies or subgroups taking the assessment and reveal the person's top 5, allow folks to seek out what they've done. I'll tell you a quick story about that. So my daughter, who used to work at IBM, her whole team took it. And then they sort of got together and just sort of shared with each other what they did. They didn't have anybody come in and sort of say, well, here's how we need to apply this as a team to make this go. So they did half the process. And I know, PJ, this is what you do. You come in and you help companies or help teams.
That's correct. That's correct. Because here's what happens sometimes. Some people buy it because, hey, it's the new thing. It's another assessment and let's go get it done, right? Some people do it because somebody on the team has done it and it worked wonders for them, so they bring it in, but not everybody's always bought into it. And then there's some teams that recognize, the manager recognizes we could be a lot better and we're leaving a lot on the table. If only I could understand why so-and-so does this, why this person does this, so I could motivate them. So Chevron was the last large company that I went in. They had me come in and do their GC team, the legal team. They flew me up to Pennsylvania and we did a 3-hour deal all about not just the strengths and how you do this and how you do that, but what does the team look like with those strengths together? And what it does is it helps you know who you need to pair who with, right? So if 2 people are great at something, they probably don't need to be paired together. You probably need to pair that with someone else who's weaker at it, because you want to do like the whole yoke that you see in the Bible about, take my yoke, for my yoke is easy. You want to put a strong horse over here with somebody, a strong horse over here with somebody. You don't want to put 2 strong people just together. And sometimes they think, let's do that because then that'll be the super team. It's like, no. So you'll find that companies don't always necessarily understand. And sometimes there's negative labels with talents. And that's why they're not getting along, because someone is saying, you know what, you're just too deliberative for me. You always shoot everything down. You always take up longer time in the meeting because you're asking so many questions, and that creates like problems supposedly. But I'm able to go in, I see you, Susan, I'll come right to you. I'm able to go in and say, listen, here's what's pushing on the talent. Here's what this person's trying to tell you. And then how do you respond? And what are your talents saying? So you can imagine an adaptability person is flexible. It's not that big of a deal. And the consistency person goes, yes, it is a big deal because team A didn't get to do that. Team B didn't get to do that. So why is C going to be able to do that now? And then aren't we going to get blowback from team A and B, right? So I'm able to speak right into how people are thinking. And basically we can look at their talents, because remember, the talents are their characteristics, their character traits. So it's who they are. So we can't ask a deliberative not to be a deliberative. Now he might be turned up too loud. He might be at a 10 when we need him at an 8. But see, if you don't know that, if you don't know that there's a scale there, you just get offended by it and go, hey, let's don't invite Jeff to the meetings because he's just too deliberative for us. And he makes the meetings go too long, right? And that literally is what goes on. Susan, I want to take your question and then.
I just had a comment about that because my team did it as a group. It wasn't exactly Strength Finders, it was another one, but we did it as a group, and I had just started working for this VP, and our relationship was a little bit tenuous because I felt like she didn't trust me. So as we were kind of going through the whole talent, and we're all communicators, so everyone was like in the emotional areas and stuff like that. Well, our technical advisor, he wasn't a communicator, he was like our liaison to IT in our department. He and I were stuck over in this analytical corner. And as the facilitator was going through what that means for the person, My VP, who I had an okay relationship with, she screams out in the middle of in the meeting, "Oh my gosh, I finally get you, Susan." And we were looking at her and she goes, "Whenever I present a problem to you, you get this look on your face and I think you're not paying attention. But in actuality, your analytical and problem solving side of you has already started kicking in to solve the problem I'm telling you about." Our relationship changed 180 degrees after that. And she still talks about it 10 years later about how that changed. So it really can help as a team group.
It really does. And I think this is a thing to understand as well. This is what's great about the talents also. I am number one strategic. There could be someone else on this call right now that's also strategic, but what are you strategic about? So to assume that me and someone else on this call is strategic, we're probably the same person because we both lead with strategic. That's not a good deduction to make, because you have to look at the talents that are also underneath my talents. So I have 3 thinking talents and 2 influencing talents, which means I like to be alone, read, study, learn everything, come up with a strategy. And then my woo and my maximizer says, now go out and tell somebody. Now, somebody else who might have strategic, but then they might have orange talents or execution talents underneath it. That's about, okay, I'm strategic about tasks. I'm going to be strategic about how I set this meeting up, how I talk to this person, what kind of car I buy, where I go to work, where I go to church, right? And so they're strategic, but it's about tasks, where I'm strategic about the information that I've just drunk in from a fire hose, and then wanting to help share it and show it and tell people, hey, this is how you can be better. So you can have people who are both strategics on the team that could be fighting each other. They recognize the strategic in each other, but one's upset because why are you strategizing about tasks when I think you should be strategizing about people? And the other person's going, why are you strategizing about people when I think you should be strategizing about tasks? So even 2 strategics could bump heads. They recognize the strategy, but they just don't understand what's the point of it. Why are you going that direction? So that's what's so nuanced and so great about it. Just because you have strategic, or for example, I'll give you harmony, for example. There's people that say, I have harmony. I gotta tell you, PJ, I think it's a little wrong because I do like to play devil's advocate sometime. Well, harmony doesn't mean that you don't necessarily play devil's advocate sometimes. Harmony also is about balance. So if you're in a room and everybody's talking pro whatever, you're going, well, this isn't balanced. So you might play the devil's advocate to balance the room so that the conversation isn't all leaning on one side. Because harmony, not only is it about looking for consensus, it's looking also at how is this balance, which might mean you might have to play the devil's advocate in order to get some balance of ideas in the room. So
PJ, just one last question here. Somebody asked, where can I find this assessment online at?
Yeah, so just Google Clifton Strengths. It used to be called Strengths Finder, and then they had Strengths Finder 2.0, but they've renamed it, named it after the great doctor himself, so Dr. Donald Clifton. So it's Clifton Strengths. When you go to the website, there's like 3 options that you can pick. You can pick just getting your top 5, which is about $20. You can go ahead and get the full 34, which sometimes they run specials on. It used to be about 100, but now I think it's down to like 55 or 45. But if there's a special, then you might get all 34. And then they have the middle box, which is for people who've already taken the assessment but want to unlock the rest of them. Then they could take that option. But I would say start off with the top 5, unless, of course, you feel pretty comfortable with what we said today, get the full 34. But I'll caution you, don't focus, because this is why they used to do the top 5 in the first place. Don't focus on what your bottom 5 is, because that's how we've been raised. We've been raised to try to eradicate the weaknesses in us. So don't try to make something that's at your bottom 5 or your 34 be up in the top or in the middle. That's not what you want to do.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very, very much. All right, so PJ, thank you very much for your information, and people, you can reach out if you decide to reach out to PJ on LinkedIn. Be sure to send him an email. Let him know that you heard his presentation here. And for those of you who want to share this presentation, it'll be on the YouTube and the Facebook channel. Let's see here. If you're not receiving emails from the group and you want to be on our email distribution list, please either put your information in the chat box or send me an email. For those of you who are on Facebook, you can just send me an email here at txjmorr@yahoo.com, and I'll get your information added this afternoon. Be sure to include your name, phone number, email, and area of expertise. Next week, our speaker is Clayton Stockdale. He leads the Fort Worth Career Focus Group that meets in Fort Worth on Monday mornings. He's going to be talking about accountability groups. I think this would really be a great presentation. Just really, how to set this up, what some ground rules should be. We've got a handout to go with it, so we'll have that for you next week. Don't forget, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, we have LinkedIn. Next week will be Ruth Lipsky from Lee Heck Harrison. On Wednesday, interviewing will be session number 10, asking those two great questions. If you'd like to have a resume review and talk about resumes, we do that on Thursdays. And then next Friday, we'll be back here at 9:30. Everything, all the links are on the Zoom. You can join us on Zoom or Facebook Live. And check the Career DFW calendar for more information. Just a reminder, these sessions are recorded. This session will be recorded, so you can go back and look at it in the future. If you go to the Facebook page, this is what it looks like. Where that red arrow is, click on the following button, because if you click on that, when we go live, you will get an alert on your phone. It'll tell you that we're currently broadcasting, that we're currently streaming live. And if you click where the blue arrow is, it'll take you to all the videos, and they're all grouped by resumes, North Dallas group, all the different categories we have, so you can find what you're looking for a little bit easier. If you go to the YouTube channel and you click on where the green arrow is, it'll say playlist. It'll pop up and it'll show you the different playlists that I've created. And then at the very bottom, where you see the red arrow or any of the very bottom things, you'll see all the playlists from that particular category, and you'll be able to find groups that are there. So what I want to ask everybody to do now is we want to get your personal information so we can share that this afternoon when I send out an email. If you'll open up the chat box, and in the message box, make sure it goes to everybody, because I want to make sure that I can capture it. Don't hit return, but enter your name, comma, your email address, comma, the position you're looking for, comma, 2 or 3 target companies that we could help you with, comma, and then your phone number, and then hit the return key. So wait and do that all at once. Don't hit the return key right away. And when you do that, I will go and I will compile all that information from the chat box, and I will put that out on the email this afternoon. So if you will go through and do that, that would be great. I'll leave this up for a little bit, so I know it takes a little while to get all this typed in. PJ, thank you for your time today. Great information. I'm seeing other emails here, people who couldn't get in because of the password was wrong, and I will figure out what I did wrong and make sure it doesn't happen next week. But we did have 76 people on Zoom and 13 people on Facebook, so that's a nice crowd. Thank you for everybody putting all their information in. Kelly, I hope your presentation's coming along for your Google presentation in a couple of weeks. I'll keep reminding you. All right, I don't think I have another slide. Whoop. So thanks to everybody. I know Bobby and Sue Ellen are going to Dickey's up on Preston. So if anybody wants to join them, be part of the Wren family today. They'll be up there, I guess, around 12 o'clock or so. For everybody else, have a great week and have a good weekend. I know I will be in the pool floating here in about an hour. So I will go trying to get about an hour of sun in every day right now. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Have a great weekend, and we'll see everybody sometime next week.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, PJ.
Thank you.
Everybody. Fabulous meeting.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.